We're going to talk about unit rates. Yesterday we talked about ratios, which was just a comparison of two numbers. Now we're going to talk about rates, which a rate is a ratio of two quantities having different kinds of units. Yesterday when we did the notes, I kind of talked about how if it's the same units, it doesn't really matter. You didn't have to list them, but when you start talking about things that weren't the same unit, it was necessary for you to label them so no one gets confused on what you're doing. Here, okay, a rate, okay, would just be something like you can see below, characters per seconds. That's a rate. Unit rate is when a rate is simplified so it's a denominator of 1. There's all kinds of unit rates. Unit rates we see all the time, you hear about, such as like miles per hour, feet per second, gallons per minute. If you notice, all of those is per 1 unit. 1 hour, 1 minute, 1 second, such as miles per hour, such as gallons per minute. So what they do is they simplify the denominator to 1, and that's what they call a unit rate. So here they said a guy typed 160 characters. He did it in 40 seconds. I want to know his unit rate. How many characters was he doing per second? Per just means division, so I want to find out how many he was doing every second. Well, what I do is I just divide both numbers by the denominator. So I divide both of these by 40. 40 divided by 40 is 1. That gives me the per second. Per second. So that's what I want. And then I just do 160 divided by 40. Comes out to 4 characters per second. So the guy that was typing had a unit rate of 4 characters per second. Here they give you $11 for 4 boxes of cereal. What you want to do is you want to find out how much each box of cereal costs you. So you're going to use what we just learned to find a unit rate of cost per cereal. Now, anytime you're working with dollars, dollars is always on top. So here you've got $11 for 4 boxes, which I need to change that to dollars per box. I need to go from 4 boxes to box. I want to find out how much each box costs me. So I divide by the denominator. I divide each of these by 4. And when you do that, you get $2.75 per box. And that would be the answer to that. All right, here they're asking us, they tell us 400 miles on 14 gallons of gas. This is something you could do when you start driving. If you ever want to find out what your mileage, if you hear someone talking about the mileage of their vehicle, this is how they do it. They drive it till it goes empty, and then you put gas in it, and you take what was on your trip meter, which here would be 400. You divide it by 14 gallons, which is how much it took to fill the vehicle back up, and you can find your mileage, your miles per gallon. It's useful. Some people don't do that, which is fine, and some vehicles actually do it for you, which is nice. But I do it. Because I want to keep an eye on what my vehicle is doing. I know if my mileage goes down, then maybe something's wrong with it. Maybe it's not running right. And it can be something as simple as putting like air in your tires or changing an air filter, which will help your mileage. But anytime if you ever hear your parents talking about what's not getting good mileage, this is how they figure it. They take the miles and they divide it by how many gallons that they went on those miles. So we do 400 miles over 14 gallons. The units I want to go to, the unit rate is miles per gallon, 1 gallon. So I divide both these by 14, which 14 divided by 14 gives me 1. That gives me the gallon, that's what I want. And then 400 divided by 14, if I remember right, gives me 28.7 miles per gallon, which is, for most vehicles today, standards, that's pretty good. Here's kind of what I was talking about, where you're going to compare certain things to figure out which one's cheaper, which one's the better deal. I think sometimes things are exactly the same. There's no difference between 2 items, but one's cheaper than the other. Well, your job is to figure out which one's cheaper, which one's better. Because sometimes what they do is 2 products will be the same, like a jar of peanut butter, but one will be 12 ounces, one will be 18 ounces, and then they cost different things. So you need to figure out, what about like how much does each one cost per ounce? So using unit rates, then you can figure out exactly which one's cheaper. Just because the one that's 12 ounces is cheaper doesn't mean that it is actually cheaper than the one that's got 18 ounces. Because if you break it down to cost per ounce, you actually might find out that the bigger jars is the cheaper one. And usually that's what you find. So here they say one store sells 15 songs for $12. So let's say they just have a package. You pay $12, you get 15 songs on the line. The other one says $9, you get 10 songs. So which one has the lower cost? So what we got to do is we got to find the unit rate for each one of these, and then we can compare. So we do $12 divided by 15. This would be store 1. And then for store 2, we would do $9 for 10 songs. So we do the first one, 12 divided by 15. You divide both those by 15. And you find out that it's $0.8 dollars, which is the same thing as 80 cents per song. And then if you do 9 divided by 10, you find that it gets $0.9, which is the same thing as 90 cents per song. So which one would be cheaper? Okay, the 15 songs for $12, right? So that would be the answer. Now that's not always going to be the case. Sometimes it might be the one where you get less songs, but you pay less per song. So that's how you do problems like that. A typical dolphin will take 34 breaths in 4 hours. Would it ask you the question, and make sure you read the directions, it says how many breaths will it take in 7 hours? Well, I know how many breaths it took in 4 hours, but I don't know how many breaths it's going to take in 7. The only way for me to solve and to answer that question is to break it down in a unit rate and find out how many breaths per hour he's taken. And then I can times that by 7, and then I know what my answer is. So what I do is I take 34 breaths in 4 hours.
Why isn't this charging?
So here, 34 breaths over 4 hours. I'm going to change it to breaths per hour. I want to find that unit rate. So I divide both these by 4. Which it gives you 8.5 breaths per hour.
Is it okay if we put it as a fraction?
Which is not the answer though. Okay, some of you will just stop right there, which you're not supposed to. Now what we do is we times this by 7 hours.
Wait, hold on.
Now, once we take 8.5 breaths per hour and we times it by 7 hours, you see here I have hours on the opposite sides. They cancel out. So the only unit I have left is breaths, which is what they want. It's how many breaths. And then I just multiply those. What's 8.5 times 7?
59.5.
It is 59.5. So in 7 hours, that's how many breaths a typical dolphin takes. Here's your assignment for today.